Tonight, breaking news as we come on the air, the gunman opening fire with an automatic weapon outside the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. Here in France, the possible terror plot uncovered in Paris, just as world leaders arrive here to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And tonight here, America's World War II heroes and what they told me about their trip at 99 and 100 years old, their return to Normandy. First tonight, the terrifying scene outside the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. A gunman opening fire on soldiers and U.S. Embassy security. 5 other suspects in custody. What we're now learning about the attack and what was written across the suspect's vest. Martha Raddatz with late reporting. Tonight here in France, authorities investigating a possible terror plot. The suspect, authorities say, a former member of the Russian military, detonating a homemade bomb at a hotel near Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. President Biden arriving in France to honor World War II veterans here in Normandy. The president will speak about defending democracy around the world. He will meet with President Zelensky, and tomorrow he'll sit down for an exclusive interview with us. Tonight, back in the U.S., the major cities on the East Coast bracing for potential flash flooding. Storm concerns from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City. The race for president tonight, the breaking headline involving Donald Trump. His gun permit revoked because he's now a convicted felon. And the news coming in on the Georgia case put on hold indefinitely. Also tonight, Hunter Biden's gun trial, his ex-wife and ex-girlfriend taking the stand for the prosecution. American Amanda Knox back in Italy years later, hoping to clear her name for good. Instead, convicted of slander in an Italian court. Tonight, Boeing launching the Starliner spacecraft, its first ever crewed mission to the International Space Station. In New York City tonight, what's now happened to that plan to charge you $15 to drive into New York. And 80 years after they landed on the beaches of Normandy, America's World War II veterans. For more than 5 years now, we have been documenting their journey, their message to everyone at home watching tonight as they make their journey back.
From ABC News, this is ABC World News Tonight with David Muir. Reporting tonight from Normandy, France.
And good evening tonight from Normandy. We are here to mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day tomorrow. The heroes, the thousands of troops who died here, the veterans who survived and who are coming back at 99, 100, 101 years old. They are extraordinary, and you'll meet them right here tonight. Their message for everyone watching at home this evening about the importance of this moment and their hope that everyone will listen and will remember their stories. Tonight, President Biden has arrived. He will address the official commemoration tomorrow, and he will sit down for an exclusive interview with us as well. But we do begin tonight with the alarming scene, the attack at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut. A gunman armed with an automatic weapon. Authorities say he had the word ISIS written across his vest. A Lebanese official confirming this video shows the gunman ducking as an armed vehicle goes by. Gunfire can be heard in the background. ABC's chief global affairs correspondent Martha Raddatz leading us off tonight.
In broad daylight, just outside the heavily secured U.S. Embassy, a gunman armed with an automatic weapon. Lebanese officials confirming he's seen in this video darting between vehicles. The sound of gunfire ripping through the neighborhood. Horrified onlookers shouting, "Bring someone to help. Where is the security?" Minutes later, the suspected gunman shot and arrested by Lebanese army soldiers, but expected to survive. Authorities say he is a Syrian national, and written across his ammunition vest, the word ISIS.
We are conducting a full investigation with the Lebanese authorities into the actual motivations.
A local guard was seriously injured in the shootout, but no U.S. personnel were involved. Lebanese authorities arrested 5 additional people, including members of the suspected shooter's family, in raids following the attack. No Americans were injured, but the shooting follows a warning from the State Department that terrorists could conduct attacks in Lebanon with little or no warning. David?
Martha Raddatz live in Washington tonight. Martha, thank you. Meanwhile, here in France, authorities are investigating a possible terror plot. The suspect, a former member of the Russian military, detonating a homemade bomb at a hotel near Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris. ABC's Tom Soufi-Burridge in France tonight.
Tonight, a Russian national suspected of orchestrating a terror plot reportedly targeting French military equipment headed for Ukraine is now in custody. Police arresting the 26-year-old man after he was found with products and materials intended for the manufacture of explosive devices, according to France's anti-terrorism prosecutor. The man discovered by first responders on Monday night after a homemade device exploded in a hotel room near Paris's Charles de Gaulle airport, with the suspect treated for severe burns and now being questioned in hospital, say officials. Guns and fake passports also found in that hotel room, according to French media. Tonight, reports that the suspect served 2 years in the Russian military and comes from Ukraine's eastern Donbass region, much of which has been occupied by Russian and Russian proxy forces for more than a decade.
David, this alleged Russian-inspired plot coming after French President Macron did not rule out sending troops to Ukraine to stop Russia from winning the war, David.
Tom Soufi Burridge in Paris tonight. Tom, thank you. Meantime, President Biden is here in France tonight, set to deliver an address tomorrow at the D-Day commemoration. The White House tonight saying he will defend freedom and democracy around the world and America's leadership on the global stage. ABC's chief White House correspondent Mary Bruce is traveling with the president. And Mary, the president expected to honor the American heroes who died here, those who fought here and made it home, and why what they did is so important and timely with what the world is facing right now.
Exactly, David. President Biden arriving here in France today to honor the veterans, but also to underscore the importance of American leadership and protecting democracy. Biden is trying to rally allies to help defend Ukraine against Russia, which has been gaining ground. And he will meet with Ukrainian President Zelensky while he is here. Ukraine has been using U.S.-made weapons to strike inside Russia. And Vladimir Putin today stressing that Russia, a nuclear-armed country, will use all means to respond to the West, saying, quote, if someone's actions threaten our sovereignty, we consider it possible for ourselves to use all the means at our disposal. And while President Biden's remarks here will not be a campaign speech, he has put preserving democracy at the center of this race. And David, he will make clear the sharp contrast with Donald Trump.
Mary Bruce traveling with the president. Mary, thank you. And tomorrow here in Normandy, I will sit down with President Biden, our exclusive one-on-one interview on the D-Day anniversary, on America's role around the world, and of course on the high-stakes presidential election this November. That's tomorrow night, right here. We turn now to the race for president, and tonight the new headline involving Donald Trump. The NYPD is now preparing to revoke former President Trump's permit to carry a gun. It comes after his conviction in New York last week on 34 felony charges. Possession of a firearm by a convicted felon is a federal crime. In Georgia tonight, an appeals court putting the election case involving Donald Trump on pause indefinitely pending an appeal. Trump and 7 co-defendants argued that DA Fani Willis should be disqualified over a romantic relationship with a lawyer formerly on her team. Tonight, the appeals court halting the case pending its review. The hearing now tentatively set for October 4th, a decision likely after the election. We turn now to Hunter Biden's felony gun trial. His ex-wife and a former girlfriend taking the stand for the prosecution today. Here's ABC's Terry Moran.
On day 3 of Hunter Biden's trial, the women from his past were called to testify as prosecutors tried to prove he lied about his drug use on an application for a gun in 2018. Kathleen Buell, Hunter's ex-wife, told jurors about the day in 2015 she discovered he was using crack. I found a crack pipe in an ashtray on the side porch of our home, she said. But that marriage was over years before Hunter filled out his gun background check in 2018. So prosecutors put Zoe Keston on the stand, his former girlfriend and dancer he met at a strip club. Keston testifying she saw Hunter smoking crack just 3 weeks before he bought that Colt 38 gun and said he'd smoke every 20 minutes or so. But on cross-examination, Keston admitted she lost contact with Hunter days later and had no idea what Hunter was doing at the time he applied to purchase the gun. Defense lawyers say he was abusing alcohol, not drugs, at that time.
The final witness, the gun shop owner who sold Hunter Biden that Colt 38 special, which the jury saw and watched as Biden affirmed on that federal form that he was not abusing drugs. David?
Terry Moran back with us tonight. Terry, thank you. Now to Italy tonight, where American Amanda Knox returned hoping to clear her name for good following the murder of her roommate 17 years ago now. Instead, Amanda Knox was convicted of slander for blaming the murder on her boss at the time. She claims she was coerced by police. She was given a 3-year sentence today, but she will not go to prison because of the time she's already spent behind bars. Knox was ultimately acquitted of killing Meredith Kircher. She plans to appeal this slander conviction. We are here tonight at the Normandy American Cemetery in France. Tomorrow marks 80 years since thousands of brave American sons stormed the beaches of Normandy. For more than 5 years now, we have been documenting their journey, their stories, their message to everyone at home watching as they make their journey back. It is sunrise here on the beaches of Normandy, where 80 years ago, in the early morning hours, thousands of brave American sons began storming the beaches of Normandy. And they would keep coming for days.
Everybody was scared because of the long life we figured we were going to have could be ended with one bullet or one bomb or one mine.
People say, how did you get off that boat and go in on the beach? There was a job had to be done. Somebody had to do it. We did it.
I've never seen as many dead men on the beaches as I've ever seen. You couldn't stop and help anybody because they kept hollering, get off the beach, and get set to go fire those guns.
Seeing all of these boys that was killed and just laying there on the beach, it was just tough for a little kid to handle. And we were all young.
Man, I was scared. I didn't realize what war was until that day. It was awful.
There was no sleeping on that ship. So we were up all night.
We had to climb down the net, big cargo net, hanging down the side of the ship with your equipment. If you slipped, you wind up in between and being crushed.
There were parachutes in trees. We knew the people had to be killed. You grew up in a hurry.
For 5 years now, we have been documenting our World War II veterans. We lose 131 heroes every day in the U.S. Fewer than 1% of them are still here. In this towing garage in Vineland, New Jersey, a quiet World War II veteran has been coming to work here since 1964.
Tim, how are you?
What an honor and a pleasure this is for me.
Oh, this is an honor for me.
Tim Canary is 102.
You still remember you were 22 years old when you landed on that beach.
Yes, I do. What you were doing was you had to move, keep moving.
You didn't have time to think about.
That's right.
He was a medic.
You were there to help the injured. And there were many.
Yes.
He shows me the photos and the notes he took as a young man at war.
You wrote here, Bloody Beach.
Bloody Beach.
He was part of the 45th Evacuation Hospital.
You helped get them home.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing. There's a lot of them didn't make it.
We spent time with Harold Himmelsbach, too. Raised in Yakima, Washington. He is now 98.
Harold.
How are you?
It's an honor.
He remembers landing on that beach on D-Day.
It was the most dramatic time in my life, and I remember best and saw things that very few people would ever see. I was saved, other guys died within feeding me.
He was just 18.
I remember I had to pick up one guy's head, because he'd been cut and so forth, and you almost took it as the reality of where you were. In other words, you knew you had to do these things. That was just take care of your friend, and that's what we all did. We were all Americans.
The letter he wrote home to his mother.
Dear Mom, I suppose I should begin this by telling you I am somewhere in France.
So many of those young American soldiers kept diaries.
June 6, 1944. Invasion started.
Harold McMurrin's diary had no entries for the next 5 days. He was with the 4th Infantry Division, and he told us he watched the medics trying to save his friends.
They would try to perform. Even sometimes they would be in worse shape than the men that's trying to take care of. We all had what we called a buddy, and we knew that that buddy would give his life for us, and vice versa.
One of those brave combat medics at the war, Jake Ruser, who is now 99.
Jake, it's an honor.
Dave, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Jake knows how many heroes we lose every day, which is why he's on his way to a high school history class in Downingtown, Pennsylvania, to make sure their sacrifice is not forgotten.
You didn't even talk about it for years and years.
For years, for 60-some years, I never talked about it.
Why do you think you didn't talk about it for so long?
Don't know.
You all came home and got to work.
We got home, came home, went to finish our education, and we went to work.
Hello, Mr. Loser. How are you?
The principal and the students who are now nearly Jake's age when he was sent off to the war.
The world we live in today is no accident. The freedom we enjoy today is the result of the actions of heroic folks like Mr. Rooser.
The students fixed on Jake's words about the combat medics who would go out into no man's land, German snipers waiting.
A lot of people don't realize that you were not armed.
We were not armed
when you went out into no man's land.
Yeah. You had to keep your eyes and ears open.
And there were times when the Germans took aim.
Their idea was to try to knock you out.
Do you remember losing any of the medics?
Oh, we lost quite a few of our medics.
The students had their own questions.
How did you mentally prepare yourself to go to war knowing that there was a possibility that you weren't going to return back home?
You never thought about that. You always went with the idea you're going to make it through.
What would you say is something you gained from the war and something you lost?
I think it made you grow up sooner. I'll tell you what, you did an awful lot of praying, at least I did.
Thank you for your service. I mean, you put your life on the line.
Oh, thank you.
The applause from those students now fueling Jake on his journey back to Normandy.
It's impressive, isn't it?
Alan Kinder from Gainesville, Georgia, going back too after answering the call 80 years ago.
It would have been terrible not to have been in it at the time. Personal pride was important to everybody, you know.
Irving Locker in Oxford, Florida, getting ready too.
That's my helmet during the war.
There's a reason he's going back.
People have to know that freedom is not free. So I'm doing that now with my full heart and conscience.
And back at that towing garage in New Jersey, Tim is getting ready for the journey.
At 102 years old, to go back 80 years later.
That's something that gets to me. 80 years. And the people of Normandy are still honoring us.
We should note here tonight that over the course of the last 5 years, we have lost some of the veterans we have been following. Their families tonight telling us, please keep their stories alive too. They also told us they are grateful that many of their brothers are still returning to Normandy. Tomorrow here, I will sit down with them not far from here on Utah Beach, where they landed 80 years ago. When we come back here on the broadcast tonight, back in the U.S., the major cities on the East Coast bracing for potential flash flooding, storm concerns from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia to New York City. And in New York tonight, what's now happened to that plan to charge you $15 just to drive into the city? Tonight, a much-needed win for Boeing, the successful launch of its Starliner spacecraft, its first-ever crewed mission to space. The launch from Cape Canaveral coming on the third attempt. Astronauts Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams will arrive at the International Space Station tomorrow. Boeing has been trying to get Starliner into space since 2019 now. Tonight, millions on alert for heavy rain and flash flooding all along the East Coast. The system moving across the mid-Atlantic states and then right up the I-95 corridor. Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia, New York to Boston tomorrow. Meantime, record heat expanding from California to Texas. Look at that. Temperatures in some areas could hit more than 110 degrees. When we come back here tonight in New York City this evening, what just happened to the plan to charge drivers $15 to drive into Manhattan? Tonight, New York's plan to charge vehicles at least $15 to drive into parts of Manhattan is now on hold indefinitely. It was set to take effect June 30th, meant to reduce traffic and increase public transit. Tonight, Governor Kathy Hochul calling it off indefinitely, citing cost concerns for struggling New Yorkers. Republicans calling it a political move before the election. When we come back here tonight, a final note about where we plan to take you right here in Normandy tomorrow night. Tonight, before we go here, a note about tomorrow, the 80th anniversary of D-Day here in Normandy. As you know, we've spent years documenting our World War II heroes. So many of them stayed silent on the war for years. We promised we would meet them on Utah Beach, and that's where we'll be. And you'll see the heroes' welcome they're getting from strangers here already. I'm David Muir. I'll see you tomorrow night here in Normandy. Good night.
Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir, America's most watched newscast.